It's win-win because the people that we serve obviously are winning, and I'm winning on two fronts, right? I'm winning because the community that I live in is being improved, even if it's a small thing at a time, but also because I feel good about what I'm doing. That's a big thing to have a career and to live a life where you feel fulfilled. From that aspect, work for me isn't just like, 9 to 5, I go in for a paycheck. And my work can be very stressful. It can be emotionally exhausting, but still at the end of the day, when we get the outcome, like the justified outcome, there's something about that, representing the underdog that's empowering, and it feels good.
Welcome to the On the Path podcast, a conversation on navigating life. Join Chris Coker and Colin Creech as they have honest conversations with fellow travelers on the path. In each episode, they explore the physical, mental, and spiritual health aspects of the whole self, striving for personal accountability and a strong community. Gain insights, learn from our mistakes, and hear from guests who have mastered these areas. Step on the path, embracing every challenge and success along the way. See you on the path.
Chris, we have an awesome guest on the podcast today, Antoinette Naddour. She's a mother of two, passionate advocate for veterans, lawyer. What else does she have? She was in the California State National Guard. She was a graduate of the Presidential Leadership Scholarship Program. I mean, there is so much to talk about with her, but some of the most important items I know you'll cover right now. And it's just so humbling to talk to somebody that's so passionate and such an advocate for our community.
Veterans Legal Institute was relatively new, and it's only grown and thrived since then. And to date, they've been helping thousands and thousands of veterans every year. It's a nonprofit organization that she co-founded, out in California. They offer pro bono legal services to veterans, specifically around homelessness and low income and disability, dealing with all of these issues, those that are high risk. So I thought it was a fantastic conversation. We really unpack a lot. So I'm excited to just dive right into it.
Heck yeah. So with that, we'll see you on the path.
See you on the path.
Antoinette, it is an absolute honor to have you on the podcast. I know you've been on a podcast with Chris before, but this is absolutely a better version and way more, gentle approach than
that was
than
a long time
past.
ago, Colin.
Yeah.
That was what I was promised.
Oh, well, I'm here to disappoint sometimes, but I will say it was great. I got to meet you via Chris in 2019, and you've actually personally helped me and a friend through your work, and it's an absolute honor to have you on the path. And as we were talking about, and probably the funnest pre-episode discussion, we have a very exciting question for you. As you know, we dive right in, but this one, I think I already know the answer to. Have you ever been tempted to use legal jargon just to win a petty argument?
Ooh, I mean, you guys are killing me here. Like, what if the people in my life are watching this podcast? So I'm actually the type of person that likes to, when I argue, use very common sense and words that people understand. In my regular arguments, and also actually in court or when talking to other attorneys. So I don't find people who use big words but then lack logic or common sense to be smarter than others. I think the people that use and communicate in language that others can understand tend to make their point better and oftentimes win the arguments more.
I think that was a yes, because she didn't even address the question whatsoever, and then just completely was able to still.
I was going to say that was a masterful dodge, because what I haven't figured out is if you go out of your way to win arguments here, that's the important outside of the courtroom, by the way.
I mean,
yeah.
If you're right,
I think she just won.
If you're right, you're right. I didn't even use the word wherewithal once. I mean,
wherewithal. What's another good one? Wherewithal. Okay. Appears to be. Is that a one?
Yeah,
I need some more.
Heretofore.
That's what I was going to say. Hitherto.
I feel like it's going to be very old English the rest of the podcast. But okay, so just to be clear, TBD on the answer of have you ever used legal jargon to win a petty argument, I think is what I'm taking away from this.
So the answer
we
is
may never know.
The answer is no. The answer is I don't have to.
Just a wink, never. No, she didn't do that. She didn't wink. All right.
Stop giving away my secrets.
The internet.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, hey, let's dig into it, Antoinette, because we want to really get to kind of why you are in the place you're in now. So one of the things that Colin and I talk about on all of our different episodes is, we're just kind of a collection of our experiences and how we respond to them. And it usually ends up taking us on this really interesting journey in our own lives. So just to get us started, we'd love to hear from you on just one experience in your life that has kind of helped shape you into who you are today and the work that you're doing.
That's a great question. I mean, it's such a culmination of different experiences, that lead us on this path and this journey in life. But I will say that, and not to sound cliche, but having children, I have two sons. Both of them are almost in college, and I had them pretty young, and they've really changed not just my mindset, but my behavior, my day-to-day. I mean, 17 years ago, when my older son was born, I had to be in court 3 weeks after he was born, and I was nursing, and I was going to a court in a different county, and I had to show up for an appearance. So I took him with me, and it wasn't like now you've got like nursing pods and people are supportive. It wasn't like that. And so I remember the judge saying to me, "What is that?" And I'm like, "That's my child." And the judge says, "Why is your child with you?" And I'm like, "Well, because I'm nursing and I don't have anywhere else to put the child. Child's not making noise." And I mean, the disappointing part of that is that judge was female. You think I would have had some compassion. But you know what? Ultimately, it just didn't lessen my resolve that I wanted to have the career, but I want to be a good mom. And probably to my kids' chagrin, I still take them to work with me quite often. I make them volunteer when I'm at events. I make them sit down oftentimes when I have meetings. And I think it's part of not only building my own character, but building their character as young men. And I focus a lot on that because I realize they're watching me, and I want them to not only be proud of me, but I want them to walk in my steps as well and be good citizens and good men.
Yeah, no, I love that. So I've got 4 kids. I've got 2 sons and 2 daughters. And one of the things, like, obviously the boys in one way, but my girls too, like the way I view it is I'm raising my replacements. You know what I mean? Like I'm not always going to be here. And I think about like, as they get older, I want them to kind of emulate, the good behaviors that I emulate. And then of course I try to minimize the bad behaviors in front of them. But that to me, like I can relate to that because I know what you mean. And especially with my teenager, like maybe they aren't grateful in the moment, right? Or they might go kicking and screaming to that volunteer thing you want them to go to, but they're holding on to it. And there's going to come a day when they're going to come back to you and be like, "Mom, wow, like thank you for the things that you sometimes forced me to do," because it will shape who they become. So I think that's awesome. And then as a fellow parent, I can totally relate to that. Is an experience that just it shapes you, whether you want it to or not. It changes who you are.
It's okay. You know what? Your kids are still young, so after 9 p.m. you can do whatever you want.
That is the truth. Yeah.
Although
by after 9 p.m., I'm like, I think I want to just sleep.
We're all in bed at this point. We're old. I get it.
It's nothing wrong. I love a quiet night, even though I can't relate to the other parts of the conversation. But I would say, honestly, you're very clearly an inspiration for your kids, in my opinion. And not only have you also co-founded Veteran Legal Institute, but you also served in the California State Guard as well. What made you kind of also go towards this life of service and also focus on veteran law? Because obviously it's had an impact in my life. You've personally helped me, but also it's clearly setting a great example for your kids, which I know is something important to you.
You know what? Service has been something like the desire to serve, not necessarily just about in military, but in life and to contribute to community. I've had that since I was a child. So I think some people, maybe they're born with that. It brings me a lot of joy. I mean, I remember being 7 years old and walking up to homeless people and talking to them and feeling great empathy for them. And And, when my kids were younger, I would, obviously where I felt the circumstance was safe, I would do the same with them, trying to see what's going on, how we can help. So it's been such a joy and motivation to be able to give back with the skill set that I have, be it with just by listening or by providing legal services or joining the State Guard. It feels something in me and it's motivating. So people are motivated by different things. Some people find motivation in the big paycheck and they also need that to support their family. And some people find motivation through ego, right? They've got the fancy title. It just, like, for lack of a better statement, turns me on, right? To empower people into a better place. It makes me feel good. I like the feeling it gives me. So it's not really selfless. It's more selfish at that point because I go to bed feeling good about myself at the end of the day.
Yeah. I think there's so much there, though. We talk a lot on the podcast about a strong community, but I don't think that's necessarily selfish when your goal is to make a positive impact, because you're only helping other individuals in your community, which just brings everybody up as a whole. So I think you're going to be okay by being a little selfish in that regard, if that's the way you're looking at it. But
I'm okay with it. It's win-win because the people that we serve obviously are winning, and I'm winning on two fronts, right? I'm winning because the community that I live in is being improved, even if it's a small thing at a time, but also because I feel good about what I'm doing. That's a big thing, to have a career and to live a life where you feel fulfilled, from that aspect. Work for me isn't just like, 9 to 5, I go in for a paycheck. And my work can be very stressful. It can be emotionally exhausting, but still at the end of the day, when we get the outcome, like the justified outcome, there's something about that, representing the underdog that's empowering, and it feels good.
Yeah. I was going to say, you definitely lead a demanding life. I think before we started, you were muting the phone and the computer, and it was just bing, 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 like the emails, texts. What strategies do you use then, for your physical and mental energy over the long term? Because if that's just a normal Friday afternoon, I'm struggling to understand how you're showing up this well and able to do everything you do.
I know. I'm going to turn off the Candy Crush next time before my podcast.
Oh, is that what it was? Well played.
It is, life is demanding. I get pulled in a lot of directions. So, prayer and PT, like every morning I have my chat with the Lord. Every night before I go to bed, have my chat with the Lord. We're good. That's my form of meditation. And then I work out probably 5-6 days a week. And, people talk about working out to look good, or, I am working out to clear. When I'm in that zone, it's healthy for me because it clears my mind. And, I'm fortunate, have the ability to handle a lot of stress. But sometimes with the cases that we receive and the things that we hear, I mentioned earlier, the emotional exhaustion can be difficult. Yeah. And so I really have to kind of recenter myself. And I do that daily. So prayer and PT, I recommend it to everybody. That's how I do it.
Yep. And that's validating, because that's one of the things we've talked about quite a bit on this show too, is like the interconnectedness of these different aspects of strength. Like the physical fitness piece is all, there's a mental game to that too. And I know what you mean. Like sometimes, like certain workouts for me in the morning, it's like, heavy metal or rock and roll music in my head, super noisy, like between my ears because of the headphones, but because I'm working out, it's like the quietest time for me is to have that. So I think that's a biggie. Do you think you do a good job, because you're so focused? Even before this episode started, we were talking about like your house is a little bit of a revolving door, right? Like you're taking care of so many people, not even like within your work, but within your family, and there's just this outpouring of you of compassion and care for others. Do you think that, not to put you on the spot, but do you think that you do a good job of that same amount of self-care, like inwardly, or do you think that you put a lot of extra emphasis moving outward, that it's something that you do have to be conscious of to make sure that you're kind of taking care of yourself too?
You're putting me on the spot with that. Okay. I'm like a do as I say, not as I do type of person. I have to, it's actually been on my mind the last year to make more effort to take care of myself. And I know a lot of your viewers probably are in the same position where it's like, you've got the career, you've got the children, you've got so many outstanding obligations, right? And it's kind of like a rat race. We're trying to, and oftentimes what happens is our self-care is ignored, or, I don't have to go to the gym. It's not, I don't have to see the doctor. I don't have to do whatever it is to take care of myself. So in the last year, I've really focused on that, and I've replaced this mentality of work-life balance with work-life harmony, right?
Yeah, I love
Where
that.
I'm just, I'm doing better. I'm not going to sit here and be like, yeah, I've got that all covered. But, I try now to make more time. Like usually I'm out 7 nights a week. And of those 7 nights, probably 5 of those nights are work-related events. And so now I'm giving myself 2 nights a week where I just stay in. I don't go, I just say, and so I'm starting to say no. I'm starting to have better boundaries.
That's good. I like that. Yeah.
Working on it.
No, thank you. Thank you for share. That's why I asked one. I felt like you could handle it. But I appreciate like the willingness to share that, because that's one of the things that I think everybody deals with is just unchecked mistakes. And I'm not talking about like these big knockdown, drag out mistakes, but just like these little things that add up, right? Like you're making a poor eating choice, every day over time that shows, or, if you're not taking the time to like de-stress and decompress after work, like these things add up. So, I think it's important. Thanks for sharing that. Are there things in your life, like, do you know, like when you hit these moments where you're like, all right, I know I need to kind of like settle. I know I need to stay in tonight, because like you can feel kind of either the stress kicking up in your life, or you can feel like the derailers coming in. Like, do you have the sense of awareness to know that those things are coming to address them? Or is it more of like a retrospective?
You know what? I get checked a lot by the people close to me in life, because I'll be like, man, I'm so tired. Something's wrong with me. And they're like, yeah, you just worked for 15 hours. That's not normal. And I'm like, it isn't. And they're like, it's Sunday. Like, sit down, turn your phone off. So, I've been accustomed to hard work my whole life. When I went to college, I was so fortunate that I got loans. Like somebody invested in my education, right? And none of the women in my family had ever gone to college. And so I had to pay off these loans, and college is expensive. So I was working almost full time, and I was going to school full time. And that just becomes a way of life, right? Like you become trained that, you just work till the mission is complete, however long that takes. So as I'm getting older, we won't talk about my age. Don't ask me that question.
Nope.
But as I'm getting older, like I'm starting to realize the value in taking care of myself, because, another 10 years or 20 years, that it's starting to catch up from now. So I guess better late than never.
What you said before, Antoinette, around like these things like catch up to you. And yes, exactly. That's exactly how I feel in my life. Like I wake up now and it's like this new mantra in my house where I'll complain about like a new ache or pain in my body. I was at the chiropractor this morning, and she was asking me how my shoulder was doing, because it's been like a thing I've been working on for like 2 months now. It's like my shoulder feels pretty good, but now there's like this wrist thing, and there's this ankle thing, and there's all these other like, bumps and bruises that I work through. So it is not for the faint-hearted, Antoinette, and you're doing it gracefully. So well done.
Oh, I thank you, sir.
What I also was picking up in this conversation is just one, it's never going to be perfect, right? Especially when it comes to getting older. We're all just in our early 20s, so we've got some time, right? Based off the age discussion. But I also, with that, like boundaries can be definitely tough, especially when you've got a lot of, responsibilities in life, excluding the career, then you throw the career in, and it's tough to juggle a lot of things at once. Has there ever been a moment, especially, through your legal career, where maybe your resiliency was tested? Was there a particular moment where you're like, like I can't just get back to center that quick. I really just need to take, a day or two or whatever it may be to really reset where I'm at, especially being tested in some sort of situation?
Yeah, I mean that happens from time to time for sure. I mean, there's like I talk about like a lot of the fluffy and joyful stuff of like doing this work, and it's like you're empowering people and they're doing great, but like In the last 10 years, we've had 3 clients end their life. And it hits me so hard because I think, like, that's such a shame. It's such a tragedy. And did we miss something? Like, could we have done something? Like, we had one guy, we won his case like 3 days after he took his life, and it's like,
Oh my
I
God.
can't speeding up the court system, and like, it hits me because, and it hits the staff. It hits my team. And, that's one of the big reasons why we do this work. Like, it's a fucking shame, right? That somebody reaches that point. And, so, when things like that happen, I take a minute. I take a minute to recenter, but like, it stays with me, and the body keeps count, right? Like, I don't forget those 3 people, and what they must have been going through to have reached that place. So, I move forward, not necessarily moving on from those memories or from their memories, but, we move forward because, I've got 1,000 people a year who need assistance that we're helping. I mean, 400 inquiries a month. We're a small staff. We can't handle that, but you just got to trek on. And that's where, again, my prayer and my PT come in, because I live with that. I live with that. Like, was there something, is there something we could have done in the community, like with the other institutions that are working with them? Like, is there something we should have done from a policy standpoint? And, you just don't win every single time.
Yeah. Yeah. And did I hear you say 400 cases a month? That is,
we have people full time just conducting our intake at this point. All they do is review applications for service. I mean, if I was a private attorney, I'd be so loaded.
Oh, the life of service.
I know. It's like,
it's crazy. How big is this? Like the entire state of California? Like, where's all of the client coming in from? Is it all California?
So it's all California, and it's mostly Southern California. So we serve primarily Orange County, the Inland Empire, and parts of Central California.
Yeah. Wow, that's great. That's actually like kind of eye-opening for me. And every single one is a veteran.
Every single one is a veteran. With the sometimes I'll get like the spouse of a veteran if the veteran is deceased, or but the 99% are veterans.
Yeah. That's crazy, because like where my head goes is like, it must be such like a big issue on the grander scale of the entire U.S. Like for Southern California to have that kind of volume come through is just incredible. Like it's just very purposeful work, and VLI is kind of sitting as like a light on the path, because it's one of few that I know of that is just really kind of on the front lines of addressing this. So I think not only are you impacting your community in California, but I think you're leading from the front for really the assistance that veterans need on a much broader scale.
Absolutely. I mean, Veterans Legal Institute is a small grassroots organization, right? We've grown very quickly. The issue isn't, do we have the work to justify hiring more? The issue is always, do we have the funding so that we can hire more? And now I have gotten inquiries from overseas, from many different states. We're not licensed outside of California. But what I do is I do a lot of speaking engagements, and I actually do a lot of Zoom calls with people who are interested in setting up an organization like Veterans Legal Institute. So there is no like secret to this sauce. I'm not, it's not proprietary. I'm not trying to keep it to myself. I would love it if other people did this work. Even within my own backyard, because I'm like, we have so many, like take some, like I want to take a vacation where I'm not working on my vacation. Like, and it sucks because the people that are, calling in or emailing us or applying online, like whether their issue, in my opinion, is small or large, for them, they're in crisis. Right. And so we want to help everybody, but there's only 24 hours.
I want to unpack that a little bit, actually, because it took me a second, but it dawned on me, like, for them, they are in crisis. That's like an important thing to linger on for a second, because I think that takes a lot of passion to reach that place, like for you to reach that place. Like it isn't your issue, right? So for you, like you're not in a crisis, but they are, and to acknowledge like everybody is fighting in their own arena, and what they're dealing with right now is truly a problem for them. And so there's this weight of like addressing their problem is important, because although it isn't like it's not a personal crisis for you, it is a crisis for them, and that there is like a little bit of a bleed back into your own life that does impact you too. And I guess where it takes me is just it boils back to community. Like it becomes pervasive when everybody is having their own crises, that it can impact the community on a broader scale. And I think that feels like what you're tackling. So I don't know if you, Colin, if you have some extra thoughts there, but that's where it takes me. Like this is the first episode I think we've done where you just like the community aspect is really just alive and well in your day-to-day life, Antoinette.
Yep.
No, I think it's really, especially to what you're talking about, the weight of, okay, we have 400, submissions a month. Like, how do you sort through it? How do you take it all on? And I guess we also know that sometimes there's a win, but it's not always a win too. It doesn't always come out like perfect. And I'm sure that's pretty common in your line of work. Do you have a story where maybe you can share about a very positive impact on a veteran's life, where the outcome was, where you felt like it was a big success, that veteran's life was changed? I'd love to hear something on that side of it, especially with everything that you have to tackle on a day-to-day basis.
I mean, so I'm living, eating, breathing this work, right? And there's 28 of us on staff, and they're sharing their stories with me daily. We have a WhatsApp where we're sharing the wins, we're sharing the victories, we're sharing the losses, we're asking for advice from each other. And there's just so many. So I think for me, some of the cases that are most vindicating particularly are, we had one client, she's female, and she served many years in the military. She's a survivor of military sexual trauma. And like that elephant in the room is like, everybody knows about it, right? Like it's not a secret anymore. We all know it's happening. And in my line of work, it's happening a lot. I've noticed to women, it's happening a lot to men too. And so when you have these cases, we're able to place the women with female attorneys. And I think that's actually been very helpful. So there's one that sticks out in my mind, and her case was obvious. There was a lot of evidence, and it's very unfortunate. And she's a strong woman. And so we did win her case. But what sticks out in my mind is, we have a lot of cases like that. So it doesn't stick out in my mind is what I'm telling you. But the part of it that does is a couple of years later, I was on stage at an event, and she runs up on stage, and I'm like, I remember her. I don't always remember like the legal issue, but I remember her. And she grabbed the microphone from my hand, and I'm like, okay, this is like, what is going on? And she said, she thanked me, and she kind of tells some of the story. She doesn't give details. She doesn't talk about her rape, but she said, if it wasn't for them, she's like, I was ready to pull the trigger. And that part sticks with me, because I think like, what a beautiful human being, and what a shame it would have been if she had done that. And I'm glad that we filled that void, in service area for this particular veteran. So that sticks with me. But there's a lot of veterans like her. I can tell you about the guy who was getting evicted, and he has 3 kids and his wife, and he's getting evicted because he lost his job. And his wife is like, if we leave, like, I'm taking the kids to my parents, you're not coming. And he's freaking out because he's like, I lost my job, I'm about to lose my house, and I'm going to lose my family. And, we work with another organization that gets funding to prevent veteran homelessness, which is what we should be doing. We should be preventing it before it happens, because it's so much harder once they become homeless. But they were able to pay up to 6 months worth of rent. And so for us as attorneys, it's like so much easier to go in and call opposing counsel and just be like, hey, what does your landlord think about if we give you 6 months worth of rent? Can you think we, he has an interview today for a job, and that veteran stays housed because of this collaboration, right, between two organizations. And it's not only does that veteran stay housed when you think about it, right? The marriage stays together. So the kids are still under one roof. The kids stay in the same school district, right? So they're not uprooted. They don't become homeless, and then they don't have like first month and security deposit, and they don't have money to remove their stuff and store it. So they're not losing all of their belongings. And where I live, particularly in Orange County, there's like almost no affordable housing. It's very shameful. But it's like, if you have an eviction on your record, good luck getting anybody to rent to you. So it's such a massive impact to be able to keep a veteran like that in his house. We resolve about 40 of those a year, where we keep the veteran and his or her family in house. So I'm also very proud of that from the standpoint of ultimately keeping families together, because that eviction doesn't just affect one person. It affects that person's family, and then their circles, and it also affects our community if they become homeless, if they're living on the street, so kind of stuff inspires me to keep on fighting.
I can speak from experience too. I remember it was 2020, I think, that I reached out to you. I think Chris gave me your information after we'd already met before, and you connected me and my friend. It was for my friend really fast with somebody you thought would be a great, be supportive, and it made a tremendous difference. I think ultimately just having somebody on his team, obviously the sense of urgency was there, because maybe where our backgrounds are, Chris and I, sometimes the justice system isn't always as straightforward. I don't want to get fired again. I can't get fired. I never got fired. Just saying. I was like, I'm already out. We're good, right? What's the statute of limitation there? But honestly, it made such a big difference in his life. And ultimately I saved his career, and he's still in today. And I think that just goes to me. I got to witness just a small part of, yes, there was a sense of urgency for him. It was make or break. That connection you made was so quick, and that person literally changed his entire career, which I'm sure he would have been fine if it hadn't worked out. But at the same time, it made a difference, and it made a difference in the fact that he was able to stay in, able to continue his career. And it's clear that the positive impact, you never sometimes know. While you just made that simple connection super fast, it had resounding impacts to this day, 5 years later for that person, or 4 years later. So I sincerely know you're making a difference, because I've also seen it, but also just the numbers you're talking about. It's a lot. And it's just impressive that you're able to, with this organization, manage it all with this incredible team. I guess just kind of looking forward, what are some areas you're thinking about for yourself where maybe this is where I want to develop more, this is where I want to continue to grow? Because it's not like you have a lot of free time based off you talking about 24 hours in a day. You got to sleep during some of those hours.
I'm going to sleep when I'm dead.
Hashtag great song.
Correct.
No, I'm actually working. One of my areas of self-care that I'm focusing on is sleep. I'm sorry. I know you guys can hear my dog, but what you guys didn't see, this is kind of like an off this side blooper, but this dog has been licking my toes the entire time during this podcast. And I have been trying to keep a straight face the entire time. Like, stop, don't stop. Like, stop. So he finally walks away.
Your poker face is impressive.
I know.
It was really good. Oh my God. I thought that was your car keys or something hitting the ground earlier.
You know what? I'm gonna put this out there that, like, having a dog, just like, everyone should have one. It's therapy. Even when I'm mad at him, he makes me laugh. So he's now over in
Chris loves his dog. So yeah.
He's a Pomeranian poodle mix named Franklin.
There you go, Franklin. That's quite regal and elegant. Yeah. I'm impressed and intimidated at the same time, Franklin.
The dog isn't intimidating though, but your growth, the sleep got that part. Okay.
So sorry, I sidetracked us, but okay. So your question is, he's, I promise he went away. Come back. So like, what are some of the things that I'm doing to like keep moving forward and to stay. I mean, what I'm doing is I'm staying focused, right? So I'm a very goal-oriented person. I look at like long-term in every aspect of my life. So I stick to that plan. Now, I make the plan, God laughs, right? But when I make the plan, something doesn't work, I sit down and I reassess my options. In business, I cannot be emotional, and that can be challenging because of the type of work that I'm doing. But ultimately, like, I have to stay on top of the business aspect, because if I make a mistake from the business end, that will directly impact how many people I can assist. Right. Mm-hmm. So I'm staying focused. Every year I'm reassessing my goals. I'm I have my strategy in place. Sometimes that has to change based on what's happening, right? Like, nonprofits are difficult to run because we still have to bring in a profit, because I'm still paying rent, salary, for supplies, like 14 kinds of insurances. Like, it's costly, right? I'm running a costly operation. And so I got to keep my eyes on the prize from the business standpoint, and not allow like my emotional desires or my selfish desires or my egotistical desires to affect the bottom line, basically. And the bottom line for me is, how many people am I serving, right? How many people got a yes that we can help you as opposed to a no? And it's hard because, sometimes I have to say no. So I stay focused. I start my day with gratitude. Like, I go every morning when I wake up, before I brush my teeth, before I get out of bed, before I speak, I think about all the things I'm grateful for. Like, I woke up today. What am I grateful for? Nothing is hurting. My kids are here in the other room. And I go through the most basic things. So I try to stay in that gratitude mindset, right? And that fuels the engine. And I keep things close that matter to me. So, I mean, my core value is family. I keep my family close. And part of that family is the extended family, like my team at Veterans Legal Institute. I check in on them when I can. As a group, individually, I make sure that they're good. And we do this as a team. So I'm never really alone. And that's how we do it, together.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
How can
let me ask you before. Go ahead, Colin.
Yeah, how can people get involved? How can they support? Because obviously, the more support, the more that your organization can do, and those in the organization.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, so there's so many ways you can help, and everybody can help, right? There's 3 basic tenets. You've got your time, your talent, or your treasure. Okay, the first thing everyone can do is please like us on your social media, like, chat, tweet, pigeon, however people do it.
Pigeon.
I was like, is there a real?
We're gonna figure that one
out.
Some of us are old enough where we sent pigeons out. You guys didn't do that.
With Franklin, his dog, of course he does. He's very regal.
I used to write notes and fold them in origami and put them in people's lives. I mean, that's how we used to. I mean, that was how I wrote my
so romantic. I could use that in my life.
Oh my God. If somebody would just, in the audience or anyone listening, wants to send me an origami folded handwritten note, I will receive that.
Oh, you're giving your address out. That's great.
Right.
Okay,
email me a picture of it.
Very safer.
That is so funny. So there's so many ways, right? Like, if you know an attorney or you are an attorney, please contact me directly. I'm easy to find on LinkedIn. And if you're not an attorney and you work at a big firm, or you are a trust fund person, or we'd love your donation. I got some amazing news today. I'll share it with you before I share it with everybody else. There's a Navy veteran who owns a very successful law firm, and he is donating 1 attorney for an entire year. Not one of his attorneys, but and that's, so he was originally going to donate money to pay for an event for us. And I called him and I'm like, I'm all about having swanky events. I'm like, but if you're open, because it's your hard-earned money, to perhaps instead, we don't need a swanky event. We can have a regular event with pizza. But if you're open, right? Who doesn't? I'd love to have, I need more attorneys. I need more attorneys. And he said, whatever you think is best, here's the money, hire who you want. And so I'm so excited because one attorney can serve up to 200 veterans between their own practice and the pro bono attorneys that we use and the clinics that we run. Like, so that's like such a huge win for me. Like, I'm having such a good
awesome
day.
Congratulations. That's great.
That's huge. Yeah.
No, it really is. Thank God. And I'm not going to say his name because he's a private person, but like, what a human being that does this anonymously. Yes. And I think I might've mentioned it, but he's also a Navy veteran and he has a son who's a Marine, an active duty Marine. So thank you to him in case he's watching, but anyone can reach out. You know, we are looking always for people to sit on our board, to help us fundraise, to come to our clinics and volunteer. We've got different people, if you're in Southern California, that will bring their group and just spend 3 hours at the office doing anything non-legal so that our attorneys can focus on the legal and not the, writing certain notes or inputting data or shredding paper. And that's so valuable. So, I mean, there's so many ways to spread the good word and help this machine keep running.
Yeah, absolutely. And for everybody listening, for everybody watching, we'll make sure that we have all of the links and all the places on our social channels. So make sure that you go into the description of the episode, click into all of the Veterans Legal Institute links there. And as Antoinette said, you can find her on LinkedIn. You can also reach out to us. Colin and I both know how to get a hold of her as well. So that's the whole point of community, is either reach out directly, use your network, get in touch, and see how you can support. So Antoinette, last question before we wrap up, because I really just need to know a little more. But as we're having this conversation, I just am constantly looking over your shoulder at like a sea of woven baskets and wine bottles and all these other things.
Yeah.
Like, what do you have going on? Because I'm assuming that your home and your office doesn't always look like that. So is there like a project you're working on that involves a lot of woven baskets and wine?
Yes. So on November 15th is our 10-year anniversary fundraiser. And awesome. So I am making gift baskets. I got a large donation of wine, and I have already. I know I'm not I barely drink. I'm not drinking it. I'm more of a tequila Scotch lady myself, anyways. But we've already made, me and I have a volunteer on at VLI. We've made over 100 gift baskets, which we've already donated all of those to. I think a total of 15 different charities, and of which over half are veteran serving charities. So like in my side hours, night hours, when I'm bored, I put together these baskets, but I would love to have my living room back. And I'm not going to show everybody.
Well, they look good. You might have an Etsy.
Right. An Etsy.
Their baskets are pretty solid.
I mean, just because I'm an attorney doesn't mean I can't be creative. It's like right. I know. It's actually, so it's prayer, PT, and basket making is how
That's right. That's the third. Right. Yeah, the third there.
Writing that down for the debrief. Yeah, right. That's what we're gonna hit. Prayer, PT, and basket weaving. Right. But no, I mean, honestly, you mentioned it earlier in the podcast too about gratitude, but it's been super gratifying to have you on, to learn more about what you've done. I'm very grateful to know you. Yeah.
I thank you guys for getting the good word out and always keeping in touch. And it's always a pleasure to run into this two powered duo together.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, it's actually
we're going to work on our synchronized dancing, but we're not there yet. So
have you guys tried synchronized basket weaving? I'm just saying.
It's in the future, especially after we create the social network channel Pigeon. So we're going to start. We're going to get your help copywriting. Obviously, you're the brainchild behind it.
I got you guys. I got you.
No, this has been great, and looking forward to the debrief and staying connected.
All right, thank you, gentlemen, and thank you to everyone who listened.
Thank you so much. We'll see you on the path.
See you on the path.